Happy and healthy altitudes to you. Hello, I'm Gary Giannetti, and I'm coming to you from Healthy Altitudes, Colorado.
Hi everyone, it's Dr. Matt Morano coming to you from Your Peak Mind in sunny Apex, North Carolina. It's good to see everybody. Hope your new year is going well. Gary,
I
what's on
love
the
that
agenda
it's
today, bud?
well. I think that I love it's your peak mind in apex. I like that. I just picked up on that. Always makes me happy to think about climbing mountains. And today we are going to talk a little bit about how you reach your state of flow when you're climbing a mountain, for example. And there is a famous psychologist. His name is Dr. Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi,
He's
and
easy.
I'm not going to spell it for you, but if you Google it, Google will help you spell it. He does some amazing work. And earlier on in my career as a coach and personal trainer, and working with athletes, we talk about the state of flow. We talk about getting in the zone. I think you mentioned that one, Dr. Matt. We talked about um, getting in a trance state, as you also mentioned, Dr. Matt, as a hypnotherapist. And they're similar, but the state of flow is something that Csikszentmihalyi talks about a lot with athletes. He also has a series with businesses and how to reach a state of flow in doing anything. And his whole concept is that you want to be able to reach this state of flow thoughtfully and consciously. And the state of flow is basically a state where you could use the example of climbing up a mountain and you're grabbing onto rocks and you're thinking about everything in front of you. You're so focused on getting to the top that you forget that you're 300 feet up and that you could fall and die, right? You're focused on flowing and you're just going, you're just jamming, you're grabbing a hold, flowing up to the top of El Capitan, and you're on your way to the top of that peak. So that's kind of a quick synopsis. I'm just giving you a high level overview. He's done years and years and years of research on it. I'm not going to pretend to be a doctor on Zoom or in real life. Go read Dr. Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi's stuff on flow. But we just wanted to introduce the concept a little bit here and talk about both sides of it. You know, how to focus on getting into that flow state, and using it as a habit. You know, kind of training your brain to get into a flow state, either in sports or doing something you don't always love. When I do dishes, I think about how am I going to get into the flow state of getting all these dishes done, boom, putting them to the other side of the sink, and then I'm done, right? So you get into that Zen state, right? That flow state. How do you train your brain to get into it? And that was one of the things that we can talk about very briefly. But I think that Dr. Matt was going to talk about something as well. And the habit of training your brain to get into a flow state is more of a psychological concept. I would leave even to a psychologist. um, but Dr. Matt and I were talking a little bit before this. Dr. Matt, you had a really good point. What was your point when we were talking about this before? Do you want to touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, I definitely want to. But before I do that, Gary, in the segment that you were just talking about, what is the benefit for someone to be in that zone? Why does that help them?
So Csikszentmihalyi talks about how it helps you perform better. And that's the biggest reason why we want to try to get ourselves into that zone so we can have good focus to perform better when we're in that zone, in that flow state. That's the main reason.
Gotcha.
So
What happens when you get into that zone, or when your body and your mind shift into that zone, from what I understand, is that not only are you mentally more focused, but your body makes a shift as well. It makes your actions more efficient, makes your breathing more efficient, it makes your acuity more acute. And because of that, you're able to do what you're trying to do a lot more effectively. For example, if I'm only focused on getting to the top of El Capitan, where in my life it's more like getting, I don't know, to the top of Bunker Hill or something like that. But the goal is that when you shift into that place, your body reacts to that, and you are doing all you can to be successful at whatever that activity happens to be. So, in in my world, I don't think about the zone as much, although I used to do that when I was a football player. But as a psychologist and as a hypnotherapist, I talk about state of mind quite a bit. And Gary, when you're talking about the zone or the flow, I can't help but think about things like just being in trance and that state of mind where you are literally, nothing exists outside of that state of mind that you're in except for what it is that you're doing. And that can really be beneficial. If you think you've never experienced trance before, or that zone before, let me just give you a simple example. Have you ever been driving your car and gotten from point A to point B and not really realized how you got there?
Yeah.
You just sort of get out of the car and go, wow, I don't remember that last 30 miles, right?
Yeah.
The reality is you've done that same trek so many times that you don't even really consciously think about it anymore. You just do it.
Yeah.
You do lane changes, you look in your mirror, you do whatever you're doing, but it all happens almost at the subconscious level where you're not really paying attention. Now, you're still safe. If someone were to pull out in front of you or something, you would react to that and you would be present for that. But by and large, your mind could take a little bit of a walk. That's the zone. That's the flow that I think that Gary is talking about, because you become so focused and intent on what you're doing that you literally find that amazing focus for what you're trying to get done.
Yeah.
However,
Wait a minute.
Gary,
However,
now this is what Gary was mentioning that I wanted to talk about. That same level of trance, that same level of focus can also be detrimental. So as much as I'm an advocate for wanting to be able to get yourself into that zone, sometimes it can hurt you a little bit too, because if you are so focused on that fly on the wall, you're not paying attention to the house around you burning down. So the idea here is that you make it yours when you need it. If you need to be
right.
on that mountain climbing up, there's the zone. If you need to be in that room looking around, making sure everybody around you is safe, that's where your observance is. If you need to be, a lifeguard watching a pool, making sure nobody's drowning, that's where your zone is. But if you're trying to problem solve, you're sitting there thinking, I've got to see why this key doesn't fit this lock. And so you keep putting that thing in there and keep putting it, you keep smashing it and smashing it, and you're frustrated. Well, if you just were to step back a little bit, actually take in the whole door, take in the whole entrance, you might even recognize that the window's open. You don't even need the key. Yeah. Right? So the idea is
good analogy.
Is amazing. We all need to be able to get in there. It's even helpful if you can train yourself to get into that zone when you want to be in the zone and out of it when you don't want to be in the zone. But it's also helpful to be able to pull back and be a little bit less myopic and actually see what's going on around you to give yourself some context. So that's the message I would give you in terms of trance. It's a message I would give you in terms of zone. There's a lot of things coming up in terms of change. We're just coming out of 2020, and a lot of things happen. We were forced to do a lot of adaptation during that year, and we're still doing it. And we're going to be changing back again, hopefully, being optimistic about how quickly we're going to change. I don't know when that's going to be, but there's going to be some return to normalcy, some return to what we used to do. And that can bring a little bit of anxiety as well. The idea that I'm recommending to you as you're thinking about this is, yes, you can be focused on that change and, oh my gosh, what's this going to do to me? But if you're able to pull yourself back out of that trance, out of that zone, out of that flow, just for a few minutes, you might even be able to see how wonderful that opportunity could be for you. So just a thought. Your take on it here?
No, I think it's awesome. I think that's exactly what we wanted to touch on, is both sides of it. And, finding your state of flow, as I mentioned to you, Dr. Matt, is like a bicep curl, right? In exercise, we do bicep curls, right? And there you go, pumping ion. So as we're doing our bicep curls, we're flexing that muscle, the biceps, right? The two muscles that make up the biceps, brachii. So we're flexing them. Well, flow, if we flex it, you can turn it on and turn it off, turn it on, turn it off, like you're flexing a biceps muscle, right? So that's kind of the goal. You want to be able to turn it on, turn it off, recognize what you're doing. Are you in that state of flow? Can you get into that state of flow and then get out of it and then get back into it? How do you train your brain to do that efficiently? And that comes back to the efficiency of driving, like you were talking about. And it's funny you bring that up, because I just wrote a blog post that's going to be on healthyaltitudes.com And I also write for a local magazine here called Yellow Scene. And it's going to be my health topic is changing our habits. And how do you change habits? And, the habit of driving was the exact analogy I used. We get in this flow state of driving because our brain wants to be efficient. That's why we create habits to become more efficient. And so we have to do that consciously to create good habits as opposed to bad habits. And recognizing those habits is a really great first step. And is it a good habit or a bad habit? Some habits you don't even need to change. Some habits like brushing my teeth, it's a good habit. Why am I going to change it? But habits, our whole life is a series of habits, was one of the things that I mentioned in that blog. And it's interesting because making flow a habit is kind of what we want to try to do. Getting into flow, getting out of flow, and being efficient to do that. So that's our quick talk about an entire career of Michele Csikszentmihalyi, Dr. Michele Csikszentmihalyi's research on flow and the flow dynamic. But I definitely recommend checking some of it out because it's cool. It applies to sports, it applies to business, it applies to life. It can apply to things you do with your family. It's a neat concept. Thanks, Dr. Matt.
Thank you, Gary. Nice to talk with you again. Nice to talk with all of you. Thank you for tuning in to us. And as always, if you enjoyed the program today, then go ahead and make a comment down below. Right down there, make a comment. Make sure that you can let us know that you're thinking about us. And I look forward to talking with you again. Have a great day.
Please. We'll do a few more of these. They're kind of fun. And subscribe to the Healthy Altitudes channel and Your Peak Mind, and get some tips to quit smoking and be active and eat well and stay happy. And we hope that we can bring a little slice of happiness to people's day, or at least a smile, or maybe a bad dad joke or something. Be active, eat well, and stay happy for your life.